So if you don't mind, here's a Christian perspective on the current conflict we're engaged in with Iran. I was around during 1979 when the Shah of Iran was deposed, when they took Americans as hostage at the American embassy in Iran. I believe that was 1979. I don't know if any of that started in 1978. Hey, I was just a little girl at the time. I wasn't really taking notes. I wasn't writing my biography, but I remember it. I remember the Shah of Iran was in the Cleveland Clinic being treated for a very serious disease or disorder, and unfortunately he didn't survive. I believe his children were exiled, obviously, because we have his son now. Hopefully, he's going to be able to re-enter the country and establish a government that's fair and agreed upon by all the people. A lot of people, millennials and people after that generation, like to dismiss Generation X as if we're just a bunch of Karens, or we don't know anything, or we're just all about heavy metal music, hair bands, and what? What else? What other negative stereotypes do you have about us? Ask us questions. Ask us about our childhood. There's just such, from what I've seen, such a lack of curiosity about what our generation actually witnessed. Don't get all your information secondhand. Somebody that writes about something that took place in a time when they weren't even alive is not the most reliable source. Not to say there aren't good reporters who are younger than Generation X. Of course there are good historians. But it's always so valuable to talk to somebody who lived through it, who experienced it. I wish that I had asked my mother more questions. I remember having some conversations with her about the 60s. And it was really interesting. I was very curious because the 60s seemed like such a strange time to me. And I knew that she had a bunch of records from the 60s, like all the Beatles records. She must have had every single one of their albums. She loved the Beatles. She loved the Kingston Trio. But I digress. She even had a Ray Charles album. Ray Charles was really popular even back in the 60s. I think just an enduring musical giant in the American catalog of musical giants. And I have complained about how music has had a corrupting influence on our culture, and it has. That's the thing. You have to have almost a schizophrenic view of American music, culture, and entertainment. Because on the one hand, so many fond memories. Many people have fond memories of watching movies, their favorite movies, or their favorite sitcoms, or listening to their favorite rock stars. Many people, unless your parents forbid you from consuming popular media, and there were some parents like that. You enjoy things, but you think, you know what, maybe, just maybe, men wearing makeup and having long permed hair and strutting around in spandex was not necessarily the best influence on the youth. How do you know? How do you know? But again, I digress. I was supposed to get to my main point. So in my first year of college, I attended a Mennonite institution, not really knowing much about the Mennonites. I knew that there were Mennonites in my area. Mennonites and Amish are similar, but they have rules, very strict rules, avoiding worldly things. But the Amish person is definitely going to be more homeschool, old school homeschool. Mennonites have integrated into society much more. In fact, Mennonite women used to wear something on their head just to keep their head covered, because the Bible says you're supposed to keep your head covered. How many Christians even obey that today? I've heard people say, as long as a woman has a feminine hairstyle, then she's abiding by that scriptural stricture. I don't care if you cover your head or not. I don't really think that Jesus is going to refuse to rapture you if you don't wear a scarf on your head or a babushka or a bonnet. I don't think so, but your attitude better be good. That's what I think. How many of us are obeying every single one of Paul's admonitions? A woman should be quiet in church. She's not allowed to even talk. If she wants to ask her husband anything, she's got to do it at home. But I don't dismiss Paul. I mean, he had things that maybe say, you're the boss of a certain company, and you just want to set the rules. Now, this is how people are going to behave at my company, and these are the rules, and that's appropriate for that company at that time, but not necessarily somebody else's company at a future time. So yeah, I am a Paul apologist. Can't dismiss him because he said some things that seem to be misogynist. I'm the last person on earth qualified to judge Paul. Because if you don't have Paul, you don't have most of the New Testament. But anyway, as I was saying, I remember the time when Iran took the hostages, and that was a big deal during the James Earl Carter administration. Sometimes when you have weak and inept leadership, chaos erupts. Also, President Carter had peace discussions with the president of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, and Anwar Sadat was assassinated. That's a terrible thing. So yes, even when Democrats are in charge, bad things can happen. World War II happened when a Democrat president was in charge. We got involved. And some people were pacifists and they were anti-war and they didn't believe we should be involved. And what really perplexes me, I just thought about this. There's a very small influencer, a short of stature influencer who says he loves Hitler. How much do the English love Hitler? Hitler was bombing London. I do have a German name. That doesn't mean I'm pro-Hitler. Please, don't stereotype people. We fought side by side with the British, with the French, to liberate Europe from the Nazis, to liberate the Jews that had survived the Holocaust and concentration camps. So I think we have a right to say, hey, we were the good guys. We were the good guys during World War II. And World War I, we were the good guys. That having been said, many of us elected President Trump thinking that he would help us to avoid war. We didn't want a repeat of Iraq. We didn't want to have a repeat of Afghanistan. But just because that's what we want, we don't want to get into conflict, that doesn't mean that evil doesn't still exist. And there's a famous quote, and I'm hoping to quote it correctly. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So the whole reason why I was bringing up the notion of me attending a Mennonite college my freshman year when I was 17. Mennonites technically are pacifists. They had students who were members of the military, but technically the Mennonites are pacifists. They don't believe in going to war. The Amish don't believe in going to war. And I even had the privilege of joining a group, an extracurricular group at the school called the Peace Club. So I'm not a war hawk, But I realize you cannot just roll over and say, oh, yes, just take over, you tyrant. What the Iranian people have suffered since 1979. It's been 47 years, somebody said that. And Trump is the 47th president. The Iranian regime has recently murdered 40,000, I believe, of their own citizens for protesting against that oppressive regime, that oppressive, merciless regime. If there ever was a just war, if there ever was a just cause, is this not one? And my goodness, all respect to the families who've already lost servicemen and women who have died in this conflict, American servicemen and women. Talk about the ultimate sacrifice. There have been 4 who have died. Nobody goes into the military because they think they're going to have a safe, cushy job, easy life. If they do, they must not understand what the job's all about. But I think most know that there's a potential that they're going to have to put their life on the line, just like a first responder or a police officer. I think the proper response for Christians would be, dear Lord, please make this conflict end quickly. Please help the people of Iran be liberated. Please let the peaceful people prevail. Because as long as you have a Genghis Khan or a Hannibal, not Hannibal from Silence of the Lambs, but Hannibal the general from Carthage, as long as you have somebody like that, as long as you have a Hitler or a Mussolini, how will the world ever have peace without total capitulation? And that's my Christian perspective. Thank you. Goodbye.